Welcome to the Energetic Intelligence Chair at the University of the Mid-Atlantic. My name is Orly Meckler, and I'm the Director of Communication. The chair was born in June of 2022 with the support of 5 universities and 9 companies on both sides of the Atlantic, from professionals from a wide range of fields have also joined this project. We're here today with Leatra Harper, who is the co-writer along with John Collings of the Energetic Coaching Being and Doing with Spirit. And today's interview, it's a privilege and an honor to have Leatra with us, who's gonna share her experiences and memories and stories with John Collings, which the chair um, has the intention to do this homage to John Collings, to the friendship and relationship between Dr. Elena Perez Moreiras and John Collings. So first and foremost, welcome, Leah, and thank you for being with us today in this special interview to get to know more about John and some memories that you like to share and some stories that we can put together and create this beautiful homage to John Collins. And so thank you and welcome. And I guess my first question is, when and how you met John?
That would have been 26 years ago, Christmas season. Actually, I had to back up because I didn't know that I wanted to be a coach to begin with. I was looking at the different coaching schools. So I first met John about 6 months earlier because we were just talking, and I had seen on the Sun website, I was doing all this research and exploration. I was in corporate. I was sitting at my desk at lunch thinking there's got to be something more than this for the rest of, for my life. I was getting into that, age where I'm really thinking, is this what I want to do the rest of my life? So I was looking at coaching. And my background was in organization development. So I was always looking at systemic ways to make change for the better. And so I was trying to hone in on my degree to use that more, and met John. And I have to say, immediately, even over the internet and over the phone, I could tell that this was for me. For some reason, I then and there, as soon as I met John, I just decided, okay, I got to get certified with Sun, and he's going to be the one to help me do it. I don't know, I got goosebumps, but I can't tell you what that was. And then it just kind of reinforced itself, of course, over the years. But when I did first meet him physically, for some reason, well, he actually was from Ohio. He actually had not only his PhD, but he was an organization development professional himself. All these things that we had in common, I didn't know. So he came to visit me when he was visiting his sister over Christmas and brought a plate of cookies from, oh my gosh, his sister Alice made the best cookies. But anyways, I had overslept. He could not, he stood at the door freezing with a plate of cookies. I don't know how long until he went next door, which is my daughter. So my daughter's calling me like, Mom, John's here. What's going on? And when he came in with a plate of cookies, half frozen.
Frozen cookies.
John was probably frozen too, I don't know. But, and I'm just rapidly, getting, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what a terrible first impression. And he was laughing. It was so humorous to him that he made that first. So anyways, my first impression to John might not have been good, but you know what I always say, to be with John was the safest place in the world. As a coach, he was just so transparent. And even in moments where I would just kind of burst into tears because we would talk about things that I didn't even realize were, issues that would come up, and I didn't think that there would be any kind of an emotional thing, he would kind of like, oh, that's interesting, what's going on? And usually I would get a different response from other people, like, oh, what can I do to help or whatever? But John would just have a way of putting it into perspective, like, oh, here we go. Now, we're getting somewhere or whatever. I don't
Right.
know what he was thinking, but it was just, he was sitting there like almost like a ghost, because he was totally present, but almost invisible, giving all of himself to the coaching moment, if you know what I mean.
Yes, yes, yes. Without wanting to interfere with your own process,
No.
but let it be, and I guess taking you along the journey. And Leah, how did you end up writing this amazing book, which now it's been translated to Spanish? And I gotta be honest, when I picked it up, and I happened to be fortunate and by accident in Madrid when they did the Spanish, when they did the presentation, um, which I'm not a coach and I didn't know anything about it, but that presentation itself, where I remember, video with Dawn and you, and I was like, wow, this is really interesting. So I picked up the book and I bought it just because I thought I might as well read it. And I was quite surprised because it almost felt like I was reading something that I already knew,
Mhm.
but it was so well put together. Um, Such an easy read, but so wholesome, but sometimes when you read into these, you know, spiritual material side of the spiritual material, that's interesting.
Mhm.
It gets difficult, right? Because you're sort of like, but this book, it's fantastic because it's almost like you're reading and you're going, yes, 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 right? It's like refreshing your memory. Um, and I remember once you told a little story how it all came about. So if you'd like to share that, please.
Oh, John always wanted to write a book. I mean, he had taught as well, taught classes. He would kind of wistfully mention it here and there. That book was in him. It was definitely for many years, I think, there. But he formally asked me to write with him, and I'm thinking, I don't. I'm just now getting certified. What do I know? It's just the experience of being with John. And he's like, no, I'm perfectly convinced that it's got to be you. I go, oh, well, I'll give it my best shot. And it just actually turned out to be like, you've heard the book Tuesdays with Maury. I always called it Thursdays with John, because for 5 years we had this standing date to talk about energetic coaching, to put it into words. And it took quite a while, but I enjoyed the process, because I'm a left brain logical person all the way. But when I had the experience of coaching with John, I knew there was something additional there, that we have all the tools in the toolbox. We have all the credentials. We have, and to me, that's what attracted me to coaching as well, because we need those things. They've been developed over time. They work. The results game, whatever we life purpose that we work on, it's good to have that framework. But John brought something additional to that. He had all the tools, but he relied upon his presence and the expectation, like the law of attraction, that something was going to happen. And he made it look like it was effortless ease, although he had many credentials and he had, studied many, many years. So even though it looked natural, it was based upon a solid body of knowledge and a lot of study. He wanted to bring to the coaching world a concept of spirit that is, in addition to any kind of religious or psychological mechanisms that we already have in place as well. He wanted something that was specifically geared to the coaching profession so that it would not step on any toes. It would not trigger any resistance. It would be like him, just totally objective and experiential. And I can't tell you how hard that was to put into words. And so when I read the book myself, and it's more like, I told John, I said, this is more like a textbook for energetic coaching. He says, yeah, that's it. He says, but because it really is experiential. Because even as an energetic coach, John never mentioned anything like that in our coaching. It had to be me suddenly realizing, John, I got goosebumps again, but something just entered this room. There is something here. And he's like, yeah, yeah. I go, well, what is it? He goes, well, what do you think it is?
As a good coach would do.
Yeah. And I equated it kind of like to the Holy Spirit, like the inspiration that I would feel sometimes with great music in church and the presence of, like when two or more are joined, that
Right.
kind of thing. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes. And I think more and more, luckily, people are more open to understand that there's much more to life than, what we can see and touch. And that essence of spirit, it's truly the one that, holds it all together in a way that we can, extend ourselves to be much more than what's in this physical body. And how long ago was the book first written? Like, what year was it?
Oh my gosh, I would say 15 years ago, because it took 5 years to write. I was probably with John for about 5 years before we embarked on it. So yeah, it's been a while, and I had let it go. Actually, I got involved in and John was always so supportive. He didn't expect me to be a full-time energetic coach just because I wrote the book or to do it, anything to promote it. He was just like wanting to offer it to the world and let it to be there. And I just heard from the publisher that he didn't even respond about, getting a royalty check. He wasn't looking at it all that way. So once it was published and we had it, it was another one of those things that he's like, oh, that's very good, and he wasn't ego attached to any outcome of. And I keep thinking that must be how the book itself just grew legs, because of Elena recognizing that, what is this? And this is the collective consciousness too. You know how timing is so important. Yeah. So there it was when the timing was right, I guess.
And
I
what?
can't explain.
Yes, I know, because sometimes it's so hard to put it in words, and it's the experience more than anything else, right? What do you think it's the biggest impact that you can see that this book has provided, or left as a legacy of wisdom and this new perspective into coaching?
Well, John recognized coaching as a calling, and he intentionally knew it as a sacred space. And I think he just wanted to offer something to the coaching community that for those who are on, I wouldn't call it Maslow's hierarchy, but those that are on the continuum, to want to go into that area can access it more formally. Although coaching in itself, for the goal setting and things like that, the self-empowerment, the self-knowledge is purely adequate, for most people. But I think that he really wanted an add-on that would intentionally invite spirit into that process for those who might want it, but not for everybody. He never started out as an energetic coach. He just started out, well, here's the results came.
Right.
It's,
And I remember you saying something so profound, yet so simple as to last meeting when you said that John, or I might not quote you right, but something to extend that John used to say, let the spirit take the moment, and just let it go.
Mm.
Which I can imagine back then, it was a very out there sort of concept, right? Thank God that the world has opened up to more of a wider mental capacity of seeing things, but that by itself, in a society where we're always trying to be in control of everything, and we think we're in control of everything, to let go of that centerpiece that is critical to our lives, and to know that it's such a big challenge, yet it changes everything. I wonder what it was like back then when you guys put it together and in words, and it was written, because how there is always a difference when something is written and when something is verbal, and the book was published.
To both John and I, because by that time I had pretty much aligned with the way John operated. It was working out for me very well in my life. It was leading into a lot less stress, a lot more effortless ease, a lot more acceptance. And I always say now my superpower is letting go. And but John lived it. When he had to go into the facility, he did not complain. My mom had complained all the time. But his attitude was so different. I kept saying, oh, come on, John. I'm sure that this is not as easy as you're making it look. And he's like, oh, we're not here for easy anyway. He says, but what am I going to do? This, he was so living within, like the book called his sphere of influence. But within that sphere, he had a very rich inner world. And it was very congruent. It was like what was in there was what was out there. And there is no difference at all.
Which is, I think, one of the biggest and probably most extraordinary examples of how to live life, because we are so detached from inside to the outside, and we have two different worlds most of the time, and it's and to lead a society where you're coherent in both worlds, it's wow.
We call it congruent, but we started out with the progression of being congruent with your relationship that you have with yourself, because no matter how much we try to deceive others or even get away with it, we're never going to. And so that is a disconnect, with spirit to come through. Although spirit's always waiting at the door and knocking, it's not, but that kind of embodiment. John had more in the invisible. I remember one time he came to visit me, and he was doing the tobacco ties, and his fingers didn't work very well, but he had to do the tobacco ties for the sun dance, and it was a meditation for him. So it didn't matter to him how long it took, but it was like a meditation to him, even though he fumbled, and he'd have to set it down and then try. And I'm like, can I help? And he's like, oh, this is fine. I'll get it done. And he didn't have a shred of stress about him. I mean, he could just walk in the room and it'd be very stressful. And then all of a sudden there'd be like, oh, the energy has shifted. even when I was so stressed out when I first met him and he had the plate of cookies and it's, immediately shifted. So I think people love being around John because he would just rub off.
What would you say that John would have loved to share with everyone? His, I guess, his, what they call it, top 5 principles or values that you think he would have, or well, he did, but he would like to share with everyone in the world.
The main one is surrender. I mean, he had a higher power that he was congruently connected with, that he knew we all did, and he used it as his inner knower, that connection, and he expected it to come through to aid and guide. So congruence, the inner knower, that's why coaching is so good for people, because I didn't even realize I had an inner knower. I didn't realize that there was like the serendipitous moments that would come through. I'll have to tell you, one time John was doing a sweat lodge and he told me that he was looking, for the doing the vision quest and things. And he's like, and all I got was turkeys after 3 days. He just knew that there was an importance to that.
Right.
That's how much he just knew, spirit trusted it and said, I'll go with it. And then it did occur to him later. But I was on a walk and I was thinking about John, and I was thinking about his experiences because we were both very involved with Native American spirituality, and we didn't even know that either. But what did I come upon as I was thinking that? A turkey myself. So that just happened the other day, but then I kind of got to recognizing the serendipitous signs that there's something much bigger going on. Like Jung would, I think, call it serendipity as well, to be able to recognize that now, like I never did before. So it creates a very special connection with something that is real, even though you can't touch it, but you can hear it like mentally, sometimes not words, but feelings. And so that's why he liked to call it energetic coaching, because you can tell when the energy is building and when it's depleting. And he would cue in on when it was depleting very well. And then that's usually when I would get to the tears. But yeah, there would be some kind of block that he would wait patiently for, inquisitively and kindly and safely. He was the embodiment of spirit, I guess you could say. That's kind of why I miss him.
Oh. I have to say that that is actually the purpose of life, isn't it? At the end, right? To be able to just stay still and embrace the spirit, and surrender to our own desires and our own agenda. And yeah,
That's why I'm so glad I have this community of people who understand that, to make it more real and to kind of fill that void. You can't help it. The more you love, the more you're going to miss somebody. Then it makes you appreciate in ways you never would otherwise. So there's a purpose for all of it.
very true. So to wrap up this interview, I guess, I feel like asking you, if John was here with us, which he probably is, what would you like to say to him?
I really do believe that part of our sacred contract that we were together, and there's something corny, like Hasta la vista, baby. I'll see you on the other side. I mean, I know you're here. I don't want to keep you just for me. I know you're off where you want to be. You'll always be there and enjoy. And I'm not going to block that relationship I still have with him with my grief. I'm just going to be happy for him and look forward to seeing him again.
Thank you. Thank you, Leah. So thank you for having this time with us. Thank you for sharing these beautiful memories, and it gets quite emotional, right? Because there's, as you said, I'm sitting here on, far kilometers, thousands from where you are, and yet there is a moment where you feel the spirit. And so thank you, Leah, and thank you, John, for being with us. And um, I will make sure that his legacy and this homage goes as far as possible in the world. That's my commitment. And to you too, Leah.
John is the embodiment of love. Love never ends. And we could certainly use more of it. So thank you for that, Orly. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. Thank you.